Wait, they were like, what?
And I was like, boss, please.
Hey, bosses. Welcome to Boss Please. I'm Megan.
I'm Jillian.
Hey, girl.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good.
How are you a boss this week?
Well, I'm really proud of myself, Meg, because I have cooked dinner every single night this week.
Every night?
Every single night. I only had leftovers once. So we're talking like full meals on my own by myself.
You're so amazing.
I made this like turkey meatloaf last night and it was pretty delicious. I had it with like sweet potatoes, and then the night before that it was like chicken with peppers and black beans and wild rice. Like, I'm really trying to switch it up here.
I love that you love to cook, and I too am getting better. But
I know you are.
You were just saying like turkey meatloaf, and I'm like, I made some stuffed chicken this week. And I'm like, she always levels up, you guys, but it's so good. You are such a good cook.
How are you a boss?
I was a boss because, I've been talking about the apartment stuff, and but I thought it was gonna be a lot harder to transfer everything. Like, we have to have our gas and electric and all that done before we even move in. And then I was like, while I'm at it, I'll just do our DirecTV and internet to see if they service this new place. So because I already have accounts with all of the above, it was so easy. I literally called and I was like,
You were expecting the worst.
I was expecting the worst because I had to make 3 different customer service phone calls, and all were super pleasant. Props to LADWP, SoCal Gas, and DirecTV and AT&T, not Spawn. But you guys made my life very, very easy because they're going to turn my stuff off on my move out date. They're going to turn it on the same day in the other place, and everything's all in one name. And then the only thing is like, now Garrett and I are splitting, but I just said, babe, I'm fine with like the bills will come either via mail or my email. I have automatic withdrawal set up because I don't want to miss a payment. I was like, once the bill comes, you can just like Venmo me or whatever.
We actually just deduct from the portion of rent. So like I pay the rent. So we pay different things. Like I pay the electric. So like I handle the electric bill. He handles all of the Netflix, Hulu, internet, that type of stuff. So what I do is just when I'm totaling, because he also pays me for rent. Like, are you in charge of rent or is Garrett?
We haven't gotten that far yet. So like we need to figure out how we're gonna split it.
So like
I'm as awkward about money. So
I just make it easier because like if I'm in charge of it, I know that it'll get done. Not that I don't trust him, but he's like a little bit of like a scatterbrain. So I just literally tell him a total every month and I just deduct. So it's like, okay, we split the rent in half, and then, all right, so I'm going to deduct our internet is $65. So I add 35 onto my portion and I deduct it from his portion. Okay. Because he's already paying it.
Right.
So it just everything evens out. And then as far as like other stuff, we really do. I mean, we've talked about it before, but we try to make everything even Steven. So if it's like a grocery store run or a Costco run, if it's like really expensive, like if it's like $300, I'll split it with him. But if it's a grocery store run that's like $35, it's like, okay, you get it this time, I'll get it next time. And that's kind of just what we've been doing. But yeah, there's like really easy. I mean, have you ever used Splitwise?
No, but I've heard of like Mint and stuff.
Yeah, I mean there's so many different things that you can do now where you literally just plug in totals and it gives you a number and that's what you're responsible for.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But yeah, we use Venmo, we use Zelle transfer for transferring money, and yeah, you're gonna be, because
I think we can pay our rent online.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because we're just like diving into all that. Because he was gonna call and he's like, well, do you want me to do gas and whatever? But it's like electric and gas and like internet and DirecTV.
It's kind of better if one
person
uneven. Has it,
right?
And then so you figure it out from there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But then like I pay for Hulu and Amazon, but it's like, do I expect whatever? I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard,
Yeah.
I don't know, because I already pay for it, and he doesn't really utilize it. So
yeah, so then I think it would be a you thing.
That would be a me thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Which, like, you independent, so it's no worry.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about some positive affirmations that we use in our everyday lives that help us, or that work for you or that you've seen work for other people.
Okay, so I had a moment this week where I was feeling sad.
Oh, no.
And I can't really pinpoint where the sadness is coming from. It probably has a lot to do with just career pressures and life pressures and putting a lot of invisible pressure on myself, which I love to do. So I was scrolling through Instagram, and there's this account that I follow called The Poof, and we repost from them a lot. They're the ones that do the little like letters, those like square link letters on pretty backgrounds. And I saw a quote that she posted, and the quote said, "Remember when you wanted what you currently have."
I remember you posted that.
And I was just like, oh my God. Like, here I am, the one that preaches gratitude and not looking at myself in the mirror and being like, girl, look at the life that you've built. Like, why are you you have no reason to be sad.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get over it. And I know that it's hard for people to get over it, especially if you suffer from depression and things like that. But I go through like peaks and valleys. So like at that point it was a valley, and I was like, oh my God, like I can climb this mountain. I have a loving partner. I have a beautiful life. I have amazing friends. So I think that for me, just saying that over and over again, just that affirmation, it like completely changed my day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I remember you posting that, and I've heard of that before, but it's always nice to get reminded, because it's like, wait, you've come so far, you know?
Yeah. We are very quick to forget the journey because we don't have the result that we want.
So similarly, not really an affirmation, but again, in my book I was reading, I read a chapter that really resonated with me. It was just called Surrender. And so it's about surrendering to the universe, because when I want something, I am spastic. I will hustle. I will do this. I will do that. I will connect with this person. I'll do that. Like I'm like, this is me. This is mine. I got this. And I'm like, oh, you know, when you're like, you see those people on the elliptical and they're like double pushing it, but you're like, are they really burning
like,
twice as many calories right now? Or are they just like really pushing too hard? That's how I feel with my career. And that's how I felt like what I've been doing for these past 5 years. And I always wondered why, like, so many people were turned off by me. Because I'm like, I'm a good person. I'm a positive person. I support other people. But like, what is it? And I truly think, reading this chapter, it's almost like you are working against the universe. Like, you are trying to control every situation, and you can't. Because yes, do work. Yes, you know, don't sit back and just wait for things to happen. But there has to be a balance. There has to be part you doing your thing, but also part you stepping back and being like, I trust in that this is my life, and I surrender myself to whatever's supposed to be. And that situations are going to be put in front of me that are leading me down the right path. Because I look at my past, and even though I've done a lot of cool things, I kind of look at it, it's like a little spastic. Like, I've, you know, maybe if I would have just relaxed a little bit more in this certain environment, would I have been somewhere different? Like, was I so hungry? And was I so starving? That's another thing. Be hungry, not starving. And I think for a long time I was starving, and it was a turnoff to a lot of situations. But so I guess my affirmation that I've been trying to tell myself is be grateful, like you just said, and stepping back. And this isn't even an affirmation, but basically me just realizing I can't control everything. I need to step back and let the universe take over. And that's what I've been telling myself for a little while now.
I love that.
Yeah, because I feel like now that I'm with Garrett, like, and things are in the process of happening with my career, but right now there's nothing I can do but wait. I've done the work. I literally don't know what's about to happen. But instead of scrambling and being like, I gotta figure it out, like, is it stressful? Yeah. But am I also just kind of sitting back and enjoying this time with, you know, my love, and like kind of just trusting that the right thing is going to happen? Yeah. Because I know I've already done a ton of work to the point where I shouldn't feel guilty right now for just being like, now it's time to wait.
I love that, Meg.
Yeah. It's kind of where I'm at right now in my head.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we have an amazing guest today. I know that we always say this, but she is honestly one of my dear friends, and I'm so proud of her. She's been published in the New York Times twice recently, and she's younger than me. So we're going to have Darian Harvin on. She's going to talk all things beauty and culture and social media, and we will be right back. All right, everyone, welcome back. As promised, we have Darian here. Hey, girl.
Hi.
So Darian is a news curator and a journalist who has been dedicated to working on thoughtful and shareable ways to present news and culture to people on the internet and in real life. She's worked for BuzzFeed News, Yahoo News, Vox.com, and NBC News. She writes about beauty at the intersection of politics and pop culture for places like the New York Times and Teen Vogue. And I can guarantee you, if you're into beauty, you've probably read something that Darian's written.
I hope so.
I think they have. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out at my kitchen table.
Absolutely. It's honestly my honor. I mean, I feel like we've known each other since college. We all went to Emerson, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's really been awesome to see you just both of you execute this vision for a podcast. So,
Thanks, girly. So I want to bring it back to baby Darian, growing up in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. Were you always somebody that wanted to move away?
Yes. Well, when I had an opportunity to, yes. And it really just came from, I like to explore. I like new places and experiences. And at that time, I had lived in Buffalo. I actually grew up in a suburb right outside of Buffalo, like 5 minutes from like the official Buffalo border called Williamsville. And so I was really raised there. My grandmother owned a restaurant in the city, a soul food restaurant. So all my life, I just have always been around different types of people. And so I grew up in like a majority like white community, majority white schools my entire life. But I always had like my parents always raised me to be like very proud of who I was and to be a proud Black woman. And so that was also very much a part of my identity. But I say all that to say that I find it very easy to relate to different kinds of people because that has just always been my life. And so when it got to the point where I was going to a private school in the city of Buffalo and it was time for me to go to college, I specifically didn't apply to schools in Buffalo because I didn't want to quote unquote trap myself, which is so funny thinking about it. Like, I'm 17 years old. Like, who are you, first of all, talking about good and bad colleges? Like, now I know that's such a weird thing. But yeah, I didn't apply to any schools in Buffalo because I knew I didn't want to go to school there. So it was like, what's the point?
Did you have a superlative in high school?
I love asking people.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, what was it?
Most likely to become president.
Yes.
I'd never in my life, but like the personality I get, and even, I mean, I was president of Alpha Epsilon Phi. Mm-hmm. And so just the leadership trait thing, I think, is what people always connect it with. And in high school, I was like president of my class one year. So, yeah.
Was that your sorority as well?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys were the
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
She was can we even talk about that?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah, you were my pledge mom.
Yeah, so like I basically took care of her during the process and like organized the entire process with another sister, Riley. And yeah, I like basically like fell in love with these girls, like, because
it was amazing.
It was a super nurturing, mothering role that I had never really stepped into. I mean, I was 20 years old. Like, they all like celebrated their my 21st birthday with me.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I get the presidential vibe from you. You know, I feel like when I first met Darian all those years ago, it was like, okay, this girl is confident. She knows how to talk and how to communicate. Honestly, it's a skill that you can't be taught.
Yeah,
like,
it's
you have it.
Thank you. I think you have it too. I mean, that was really, yeah. And that was always the journalism thing. Like
Yeah.
going into Emerson. I mean, the good thing about, I think it's good. A lot of people, I feel like, go into Emerson like pretty much knowing what they want to do. I don't know if that was your guys' experience, but like I had a little, I feel like, or even some kids, they go into film and they know they want to be filmmakers. It's very much that kind of school. It's like a skills school. And so with the journalism thing, my logic at the time was just, I like to talk to people and I like to talk and I like to communicate. So that was really it. So yeah, I guess you can say that. Yeah. That's
So
my thing.
Going with that, what was your first job outside of Emerson or after Emerson?
Yeah,
And what did you learn?
My first job, well, technically my first job was a serving job. So after I graduated, I went home to Buffalo for a couple months, and then I still have this philosophy about New York. I feel like, or any place, I feel like if you want to work someplace, it's good if you can put yourself there first. It's hard, but I think that what I told myself, I said, Mom, I'm going to go to New York over the summer. I'm going to give myself 4 months to find a job. That's not long enough to find a job, I think, personally. I think it's doable and I did it, but I think you should give yourself more time. So technically I was like serving at this French restaurant, but while I was in the city and while I had off, basically whenever I wasn't working there, I was like getting coffee with people, like sending emails, just like letting people know that I was here and I could meet and I was looking for a job. And so my first job was at Dateline NBC. I was a program coordinator, which is like, it's a contract position. It's one of those positions you have for a year. Now they're much more common, I think, in media, but you have them for a year. And after that, they either let you go or you move into a staff position. You can't have them longer than 12 months. And so I was a program coordinator, but I was specifically the assistant to one of two executive producers for Dateline. Her name was Liz Cole. And yeah, that was my first job. And then for a while, I still kept the restaurant job because I wasn't making enough money, really. Like, I still wasn't making enough money. But then as Dateline got more intense, I was working more hours. And also, like, the restaurant job fell apart. Like, I didn't want to do it. It was miserable. And so then I just started at Dateline. Yeah, and I was there for a year. So
amazing.
Yeah.
So then after that, there was the job at Hardcover, and then you kind of fully switched to like this news curation consulting like angle. So was that on purpose, or was that where you saw the industry going? Like what brought you to that point?
It was kind of both. When I was at Dateline, it was during the time, not just there, but I think generally within news, where everyone was really trying to figure out social media. And it had been around, I mean, at this point it was 2013. So like Twitter had been around for a couple years, but there were very few best practices around how news should be using it. And then the layer of Dateline being, it wasn't nightly. It was like a magazine show it came on, and it was crime. So I kind of just jumped onto that team and volunteered, and I was learning more about social, and I became interested in that. So that's how I became just interested in like digital and social, because before that I was just really into TV and like in on-air reporting. And so I fell into it and I started calling myself a news curator because I realized that's really what it was. Like, you were taking information from articles or links and you were presenting it, and you were finding ways to present it based off of the platform. And so I think before I got to BuzzFeed News, where they had a literal news curation position, I was working at Yahoo News. And there I was like a mobile editor, and I was like putting together like 5 stories of the day. And I was putting together like short bits of like summary for mobile for people to use. I was shortening headlines. Like, I was pulling together elements to create mobile friendly stories. And so I felt comfortable calling myself a news. I mean, that was really what I was doing. And so the job at Yahoo, it just got to the point where it got really monotonous, and also like the app wasn't getting as much activity. They were going to shut it down. Like, we didn't have a lot of resources around it. So I was looking for something new. And the first time I applied for the news curation job at BuzzFeed, I didn't get it, but I interviewed for it. And then the second time I got it, maybe like maybe a year later, maybe a year later. And then it was just funny because I knew that it was the right job for me because I had been calling myself that, and then they actually had a position.
Yeah,
so it wasn't like the
universe was like,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
so that was a cool job because it was mobile stuff, but it was also social. It was like wrapping social back in, like sending push alerts. Like it's just much more than social now. I feel like if you're on a social team.
That's so cool. I know when she was telling me that she was, telling me a little bit about what you did, and she was like, yeah, the like pop-ups that would come up for news, like, yeah, Darian wrote that. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, that is
Girl,
cool.
Yeah, it's crazy, honestly. Like, and I used to always be a little competitive about it. Sometimes it's good depending on the news, but like whenever I beat the New York Times, I was so happy.
That is so
just
amazing.
Like little stuff like that, Sometimes it's better to wait, obviously, for pushes or for certain stuff, but
yeah.
I would always make it a little game for myself.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
So, part of really what makes you so successful is that you write about your passions so honestly. What made you start doing it like that way?
Yeah, I feel like honestly it's been a process. I feel like
Snapchat Darian was legendary.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like,
I'm so mad I missed out on it.
I feel like that's what really started the whole, like, I'm just going to share what I like, and, like, hopefully I help you, but, like, I don't really care. I'm just kind of telling you what it is.
What it is. I know. And it's just something about Instagram where I don't feel like I can do that in the same way. And I can't tell you why. There's so much about just the nimbleness of Snapchat that I miss, but no one is really on Snapchat any longer. Like, they made a bunch of changes. Like, they made it I felt like they prioritized brands and advertisers a lot, where like we were all on it for a while and then we stopped. But like, back to your question, I feel like I can't really tell you 100% why I made that decision. I feel like I wanted to do what I wanted to see more of. And I felt like this was also around the time where a lot of influencers now that are more curated, and they were doing whatever they wanted to, like so many of them were doing that as well. So for me, it was like I could do it too, just for my friends or whoever was watching. But I will say that what I still struggle with is I feel like as the world has become more political, and like we're very, very much like we're in this cancel culture, it's gotten harder for me to kind of express how I feel, because I worry very much. And it's not because I am saying anything problematic, but I think harder about what I say, and sometimes I feel like I end up not saying anything at all. So I've been working on that, because I still feel like this is the time where you need to stand for something these days, and it's okay to still express how you feel and to not let the fear of what other people think bring you down. So I'm working on that still. But yeah. Snapchat Darian was like awesome.
So funny.
I think a lot of it has to do, like social media specifically and Instagram specifically. I feel like it has to do with this. I think we're moving away from it, but there was such like a push towards a certain aesthetic that you needed to maintain. Your feed needed to look beautiful. You literally had to filter all of your photos that you would put on stories so everything looked cohesive, and you're having to create all of these collages that you put on stories, and like it's just so much extra work just to have that vision.
Right. I agree with you. And I think that I'm happy that I agree with you that we're veering away from that, and I'm so happy, because it's just not a reflection of how people live their lives.
Right.
Like, it's really not a reflection, and I think that I have definitely, at least with my stories, like owned up with being a little scrappy with it, and like not really, because I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to sit here. It's not my job. Like, I'm not an influencer, and I'm not getting paid to do this.
Right.
So you're gonna get what you're gonna get, and it's like gonna be a little scrappy, but I'm gonna get my point across.
Yeah.
So
I dig that. So now, as far as work, you're kind of doing like dual duty.
Yeah, I am. I'm moving more in the direction that I want, but still doing both news, social, and the beauty reporting, which has been new for me. And really how that came about was just getting really burnt out from the news stuff. So it was like I had been doing it for at least with with Yahoo and BuzzFeed for at least like 2.5 years, which isn't really that long. But if you think about everything that has happened, even in these past 2 years,
Yeah.
like
Let's say 3 years.
3 years. Yeah. Like being in a newsroom and also working weekends, where like weekends used to be traditionally like a quieter time in newsrooms. No way. Rallies, shootings, just anything you can imagine was happening over the weekend. And I just got really burnt out. And I think for a long time, especially as a woman of color, I felt like I really needed to be there and I needed to just be a different voice in the newsroom. But I just started to get really tired and really disinterested, not in the news itself, but in the job. And so I had always been into beauty. I always had loved skincare. Like even when I was at BuzzFeed, like I wrote a piece for Into the Gloss, which is like, you know, Emily Weiss, like before she started Glossier, it all really started with this community she had on ITG. So I wrote for them and the piece did really well. And that got me more serious into beauty, doing something in beauty. I wasn't really for sure what. I thought maybe I could consult. I didn't. Actually consulted for Glossier for 6 months, which I love everyone over there and I really liked the work that I did. But I realized that it made me realize that I didn't want to consult because I still feel like I had clients or people who I had to answer to. And I've always, the reason why I'm in the position I'm in now is because I do have a hard time with office settings and with 9 to 5 and with authority sometimes. And so I went through a rough patch, honestly. Like I was burnt out for a while. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I was interested in beauty. I didn't know how I wanted to navigate it. But I eventually ended up moving to LA and I quit BuzzFeed. I moved to LA and that was kind of like when the rough patch started because I was like freelancing still for the BuzzFeed entertainment group side. So that was good. But it was still like, I'm not doing I can't figure out what I'm interested in. I just really know it's not social in the same way. I ended up going to Columbus, Ohio, which is where my mom lives in her side of the family, just like spending a couple months there. And I did a little bit of traveling. Like I really like Paris. As Jill knows, I like have friends in Paris and I like to go there. And then I kind of just started to pick up and get motivated again. And I learned it's really a process that you cannot like rush. I think that I moved to LA and I thought I was going to do all these career milestones and they've more been like self milestones, you know.
It's
and
so crazy. I literally was just talking about this at the beginning
really?
of the podcast about, yes, please continue because it's hitting me in my soul.
Yeah, it's like there were just things as a person that I needed to grow in certain ways and like look at myself, like how could I be a better friend, a better sister, and so I feel like I've done a lot of that growth and now I'm definitely in a place where I am doing social, actually work again for Yahoo News, doing something kind of similar. And I also do social on the weekends for Teen Vogue. But then I also write like beauty. So like that's what I focus on doing. So I write about beauty and culture for the New York Times style section, which
no big deal.
It's so crazy how that happened. Yeah. Like honestly, I mean, I think this is a good lesson because it was like I think Joanna, who is one of the styles editors, we started following each other on Instagram and we would like DM and talk here and there. And she worked very closely with Bill Cunningham. Bill Cunningham is like an amazing, he's like to me, he's like one of the first, if not the first street style photographers. Like he's like, he ended up passing away, but we kind of connected and would talk about him. And then she came to LA one day and I honestly just thought that we were meeting up, like just, to meet in real life. And then I was like, oh, I actually do like have some story ideas. And it ended up being like, oh, wait, yeah, we're interested in those. Like, you should write those. And then there was another story that she passed off to me, or she assigned me, that was on Insecure. So that was kind of how I started writing there. It was really just off of a relationship, or like building a relationship.
What was, when you first saw your name as a published article in the New York Times, like, what was your reaction?
I think that I was definitely like very surprised and in awe. And it was honestly nothing that I was like, it wasn't a goal per se, but it was something that I was like, I'm just going to own this. Yeah. Like, that's how I feel now, is like, I'm just owning it. I don't have an issue telling people that I write for the New York Times, because it's true. I consistently am writing things for them. It wasn't just like a one-off piece, you know? So, and I pitch them things all the time. And, I can talk about this because this won't come out tomorrow, but tomorrow I have a piece. I wrote a profile on Tracee Ellis Ross. Yeah. So
you did?
Yes, it'll come out tomorrow. Awesome. And then the next day it will be in print. So, you know, it was like, and that story really came about because I had pitched it. And then when we got in touch with her PR, that's when we found out that she was doing the hair care line. Yeah. So it wasn't even like anyone had pitched that to me, or because the New York Times, or because my editor knew. It just meshed up in the right way. So I just mean like things like that. Like, I really trust my instincts, and like I really try to stay attuned with culture, honestly, to be like, okay, I know people are talking about this, or I know that this would do really well. But I have that experience from doing the social stuff. Mm-hmm. So I feel like being a writer now, but having that social background has really helped me, because I know what performs well on social, with obviously having like some dignity to what you know what I mean. Yeah. But yeah, so
no, I really appreciate you telling that story, because we do stress how important relationships are on here, and how you never know, you know, never to burn a bridge, always build one. And I personally love the way that you interact with people using your social. Like, I know whenever you're writing something or pitching something, like you might crowd survey, you might be like, is this something that you guys want to read about? Like, right. Most recently it was about relaxers. Yeah. And I know nothing about that because I am the whitest of white. But in that conversation, and you sharing what other women had to say about using relaxers or not using relaxers, I learned so much. So like, I personally hope that you take that and turn that into something. Yeah. But like, you're doing stuff like that all the time. So I wanted to throw a topic out to you that I've been thinking a lot about, that I probably should have just texted you about, but we're going to talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, let's do it. I love it.
So obviously everyone, or a lot of people who have an HBO subscription, have seen Euphoria. And I was reading on all of these Twitter threads about how, you know, this Euphoria makeup movement. Now, for you guys who haven't seen the show, it's a lot of neon, it's a lot of glitter. It's very stylized. It's never mentioned, but kids are wearing it to school. It's just, it became almost a character in the show itself.
Totally.
But Pat McGrath has been doing that forever.
Right.
So, like, I kind of got like offended, because as somebody that follows beauty and makeup, I was like, you're saying that this movement is happening, and I get it, because it's an important part of exposing it to people that maybe aren't into makeup. But I'm like, this woman has been doing this for, like, look on her Instagram page.
Yeah. So this happens all the time. Like, if you think about it, and what it comes from is just a lack of context, or not really understanding where a trend comes from, and that trends often will repeat itself. I feel like we've seen it with it's not, I feel like with this, it's not as like, it's not a race or racial thing. Like, we've seen it with cornrows. We'll see like the appropriation of different cultures.
The Kardashians.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So like, I think that for me, I don't feel that way specifically about Euphoria, but just this idea of like people not understanding the context. So then we start to call it Euphoria makeup because we don't know the context of. So in addition to that point that you make about Pat McGrath, there was a woman at Allure who wrote about that.
It was there?
Yeah.
Because I just saw people like tweeting about it. I was like, this is so interesting that, you know, there are those people that are like, hey, wait, like, she's been doing this forever.
Totally.
And I'm sure that those makeup artists on the show pulled from her stuff.
Yeah, like I'm sure that they're inspired by Pat McGrath. It has been really, and I think something that has helped honestly to fuel this kind of just this trend that I think that Euphoria has more brought to a mainstream audience of people who don't know who Pat McGrath is. She's a legend, and like we know about her and and what she does, but there are tons of people who don't. And so I felt like what Euphoria kind of did was it put more of a spotlight, even if she's not named, on this look of pops of color, of glitter, of some of that aesthetic. But what I really think helped to fuel it was that the makeup artists themselves on the show, I think that they do a lot of great storytelling around the looks, which I feel like really helped. Number one, because it was natively on Instagram, where we all are. It's already a visual platform. They were showing behind the scenes photos. That was really interesting to me, and I really like following both of them. But I think there are so many things that you can take and you can apply this notion of like, wait, hold on a second. When's the, you can do it to TV shows. You can do it, similar TV shows. You can do it to reboots and things like that, and it's like someone may look at Blackish, right? Like the show Blackish and be like, wow, this is like a pioneering sitcom, and it is in a lot of ways, because it's talking about a lot of like modern issues that Black families did this, but you could have dealt with. But you could say this about the Cosby Show. You could say it about the Jeffersons. It's like there's so many things. That's why I think it's really important for me. I like to stress context in the work that I do, because I feel like we need more dot connecting. Like, we should be able to be in a conversation and we're talking about Euphoria and how popular it's become. And it's like, we bring up Pat McGrath because we know, you know what I mean? And so that's the way I always think about it. But I agree with you. Someone did write about that. And I kind of was shook, honestly, because I was like, I don't think I had fully realized it myself, honestly, if I'm being completely candid with you.
I even thought too, like, and I know that you used to work for Glossier, but their play line, like, everything was so different than what they had done before. It was like very natural before, and then all of a sudden they made this like hard shift into this like new sect of what they were doing, and it was all like beautifully like bright color stuff that normally I don't think women would ever wear. And now I'm walking down the street, and I mean, we live in LA, so it's like extra amped, but I'm seeing like these crazy looks and people taking chances and doing things that they've never done before, which I find completely fascinating, because I think out here the natural look is very in.
Do you?
I do.
Okay, like, I don't know. I guess
I don't know. I feel like
you've been out here longer than me.
I think it depends on where you are. I mean, if you're obviously like out in Hollywood going to a club, like you're gonna see something different than you're gonna see in like when you go to like San Bernardino.
Got it.
And like there are just little pockets of different cultures everywhere, so you kind of get certain looks. But yeah, I don't know, I've been curious about that since the show came out, and know that like we had kind of talked offline privately about like Euphoria stuff and everything else. But
yeah,
no, I just think that your work is really important. And for me specifically, like I read your stuff and I feel informed and empowered.
Good. Yeah. That's like a real big goal for mine. That, like the context part, right? Walking away. I just think it's really good to walk away reading anything and feeling like you learned something new. Yeah. Like I love that. I want to be able to read stuff during the day, and then I sit down with like my non-existent boyfriend and like tell him something I learned today. Yeah. It's just little stuff like that. Like that is honestly what makes me feel good. So it's like I want people to walk away. It's like there are already so many Tracee Ellis Ross profiles and coverage and covers that she's done based off of this hairline that she's created. So for me, the thing is, how can I bring something new to this conversation?
I feel like, I don't know if I need to show Megan this after we record, but my favorite meme has spawned from her hairline, which is her carrying out the shopping bags from Ulta or wherever she was after she purchased like all of the stuff from her hairline. And it's like, she's like, yeah.
So funny.
No, it's
That's
like,
so funny.
Again, and I will definitely link to the article when we share your story, which I feel like people are going to be so excited to hear.
100%.
Not to end things on a low note, but I do think it's kind of important since we've talked about a little bit of lows here, and I know that you're constantly hustling for the next thing. And you talk pretty openly about therapy and how that's impacted your journey. Talk about those lows a little bit and like how you kind of have to bring yourself up from them, because the industry that you're in is unpredictable. Like, yes, you have the check from Yahoo, but like what else? Like, what keeps you motivated?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that there were two things that I learned about myself in therapy that I feel like I'm in a better place in. I think the first thing was there are a lot of things that I think that we all can relate to this on different spectrums, but there are things that you go through when you're a child that you think that maybe you are over or you're past that you're not. News
You
to
are
me, honey.
right now. I'm like, I feel this. I feel this. Yeah.
And so that was big. And then I learned that outwardly, I'm a very confident person, but inward, I have a lot of insecurities that I needed to deal with. And I'm very proud of myself because now I've been in therapy February, January, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So like 8 months. And I know that I have grown in that it's just good to have a space to talk through work, life, relationships, family, and all those things. And now I feel like what motivates me is I have better tools around staying focused. And for me, that was really important because I'm someone who I have so many interests and so many things that I want to do that it was often I was pulling myself in 3 different directions when I so badly just wanted to be good at one thing. Like I really, really do. And I did, and I do. And I'm getting better at focusing my energy and my talents on one broader beauty it being and reporting on the industry. And now I know different ways I can do that. And I'm working towards that versus I'm trying to still do news and social media and be in beauty. It's like, right now I'm doing it because I'm like in the thick of the hustle of it, but that's not my goal. My goal is to just be able to commit myself to the beauty stuff. So I would say like a big tool for me is in terms of staying focused is I oftentimes will, I have amazing friends. I have amazing accomplished friends, and I want to keep myself happy and I want to keep myself as a supporter and a cheerleader for what they do. But I will get down on myself for not having those same opportunities or for not being there yet, and kind of understanding and telling myself that like everyone's time is different has been really important for me, especially as someone who has not taken a traditional path to get to the places I want to get. Sometimes it's just taking real breaks from social media, which I honestly think fuels a lot of the lack of confidence in various areas, not just in work. So I'll do that. And I think just mental notes that I keep in mind, like I'm much better now at looking back at the things that I have accomplished and I have done. And you know, I'm living in LA. I have an apartment. I have a roof over my head. I'm supporting myself. Like, I'm not asking my parents for money very often. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm really trying. I know that I'm trying. You know, like, I know that my intentions are good. And I feel like just realizing that and really recognizing that also has kept me motivated. And yeah, it's so weird. It's like such a weird, vulnerable place to be, but it's like I'm here now. And I know it's going to get better. And a lot of the things that I'm managing and doing now, I won't have to. But for right now, this is like my life. And I think what gives me comfort is knowing that I have a good idea of where I want to be.
Yeah.
So that is really helpful. But yeah, that's really
I love that. I feel like topped it. Like, that was beautiful.
It literally goes along with exactly what we said at the top of the show.
It literally came full circle. I looked at you at one point when she was talking about something that you had said, and I was like, this is just...
Yeah,
it's
a quote.
about... Yes.
Yeah, just like, do you remember when you wanted what you currently have?
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, shit, like, I need to be grateful.
Yeah, and it's like I never said, oh, I wanted to be in the New York Times, but definitely the kind of work I'm doing, I'm headed in the right direction. And I am not at a loss of ideas, you know, like that is what really keeps me motivated is like, I know I can do these things. I've done it. I'm going to keep on doing it to the next level. If I just keep on working on myself and building good relationships with people, like, okay, let's go.
I love it. I love it so much. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast. Where can the people go to follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram as is Darian, Darian, and then I do tweet. I do tweet sometimes. I tweet like once a day, twice a day. It depends on how I'm feeling. Like it honestly just depends on how pissed I am at the world. Like I'll start tweeting. But it's just Darian Symone. Darian Simone.
Love it so
Yes.
much. Well, thank you, Darian, for joining us, and we'll see you all next week. See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Boss Please Pod. And don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe on iTunes. Navigate the path to your best self with us because bossing together is always better.